Nick Roush and Adam Luckett now happy to be joined on 11 personnel by Kentucky offensive coordinator Liam Coen. Just wrapped up a 10-win season for the Cats and a victory down in the Citrus Bowl. And then you follow that up with just a beatdown of your old team, the Rams. Put it on the Cardinals. That's got to be fun to watch from afar.
It was an unbelievable season. And, just to be in Lexington from our first year as a family and the support that we got from the community and obviously from the school and the fan base was something obviously extremely new to us. And it was really fun to be a part of and to be a part of some of the football games that we won. And that whole ride was amazing. And really excited for the Rams. That was a big win in a big way. And I know that's a division opponent that you always want to, play your best against. And they've had the Cardinals number now for a few years. And it was really fun to watch those guys play like that and be able to go watch them this weekend.
Well, we're obviously going to talk a lot about the season, but I got to ask some NFL questions. So it is Tuesday at 11 a.m. Let's just say this is your normal. We'll act like this is a year ago. What would you be doing on Tuesday after a wild card win to get ready for the divisional round?
So, that being said, because they're a little bit on a short week, right? Because they played Monday night and now they have to play Sunday evening. So a little bit of a short week. So really, it's hard because you get such a late jump on the next opponent. Even so, they have to get all the breakdowns of Tampa. I don't think they played Tampa this season, did they? So they're breaking down the entire season. Before the game, you have to start to break down your possible opponents, right? And then you don't want to do a ton of unnecessary work either. So I know I texted those guys, yesterday or last night, and they were grinding last night. They were really getting after because they're a little bit behind. And, on a positive note, though, they do know the opponent a little bit. It's not like, Tampa does some really good things on both sides of the ball, but they played them last year, a little familiarity with the systems. And, I think this kind of game is going to be about Jimmy's and Joe's, not as much X's and O's. The Tampa's got really good players, Rams got really good players, and those guys need to show up. But today would be, on a typical week, the players wouldn't be in the building. Coach's staff day to really kind of work on the game plan, work on the opponent's scout, start to get things ready for tomorrow. But I'm not sure that they're on the same exact schedule this week.
Right. I think it's funny when in our line of work, there's a lot of like, oh, wow, the NFL is doing what colleges are doing. And, you saw some of the RPO stuff with Kaepernick and Harbaugh, and you're still seeing more quarterback run. The new thing that's big in the NFL, I'm curious your take on it, the aggressiveness on fourth down. Staley for the Chargers is all about it. He's kind of the captain of it, but I think league-wide –
and Liam was with Brandon Staley last year.
Yeah.
So do you think that that's something like – is that a wise direction to go in? And do you think that that's going to come down to college at all?
It's funny that you say that. Back in 2018, you guys could probably reference the game, but 2018, the year we went to the Super Bowl, we were on the road at Seattle. I think it was like November 5th or something like that. But we were on the road at Seattle. I think we were up by 2-3, something like that at the end of the game. And we had the ball on our own. I don't know. I want to say minus 38, 40, like right in that, like probably the 40 right there. And it was 4th and 1, and we went for it. And everybody on the headset. So Sean, we called timeout. Sean's asking everybody on the headset, what do you guys think? What do you guys think? Everybody on offense was like, punt it, pin them, make them go. We have the best punter in the NFL, like make them go. But that's Russell Wilson on the other side. And we hadn't stopped them all game. And I remember he asked Wade Phillips, and I thought this was like such a great kind of moment in coaching, was he asked Wade Phillips and he goes, Wade, what do you think? And he said, go for it. go for it. We haven't stopped him. We haven't, like, who's on the other side of the ball. Like, he could put his pride aside in that moment and say, like, no, dude, like, I need your help. Like, go for it. I don't feel great about stopping him. But mind you, if we would have get stopped on that, all they need is like 5 yards for a field goal. And we went for it and got it. And it was like the most unbelievable call I've seen, because everybody except for Wade said punt it. And that's just a gut. That was not analytics. That had nothing to do with anything besides Sean and Wade having, like, going with their gut. So I do think that some of those things will come down to the college level. I mean, I just think that, when you have people in those situations, sometimes, like Iowa in the game, like, what do they know? I mean, they go for it and get the yard, the game's over.
Yeah. But instead, I think some of it too, like you mentioned personnel, they went for it earlier in the game and yeah, Bully kind of blew it up. And I think that was kind of in the back of their minds there.
I think, I think the analytics is kind of, obviously it's an important tool. You should use it. It's a resource, but it's not everything. Sometimes it's game feel. Sometimes it's opponent. Sometimes you catch yourself in a shootout like you all were in against Tennessee. Right. And at the half, you're thinking, all right, we need to score here, get the ball back. Comes back and bites you in the ass a little bit. So, I mean, these are not easy answers, and you've got to make them in what you want. What do you have to make that decision in, Liam, without a timeout? 10 seconds, 8 seconds.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, there's never a right answer, but these are how, like, a lot of games are won with these little decisions.
I know, because like you referenced the Tennessee game. I mean, I thought that was the right decision that we had. We drop a third down, like, Will puts it behind Wandell on third down. We go for it on 4th and 4. We put it, Wandell usually makes that play on the out route. They zero blitzed us. We get it out to the outbreaker, and Wandell's just a little bit outside of his stretch. We don't get it, and they go 3 plays and kick a field goal, which ended up being the difference in the game.
Right.
Like, you have, but what going for it in those situations, like, in the grand scheme of things, did that cost us that game? I don't know, but it definitely had an impact, right? But at least you can now go to your program and your team and say, look, guys, for us to take the next step as an organization, for us to take the next step as an offense, we need to finish there. We need to execute that situation for us to take the next step as a team and close people out. And so at least there's coaching moments that can come from those situations that ultimately can help and benefit your team down the road. Maybe not in the short term.
So I was down on the field there at the end of the Citrus Bowl, and I know I'm not normally there after games to see the kind of reaction on the sideline, but you were ecstatic. Like, there was a lot of emotion between dapping up the guys, Woodward. I mean, where did that emotion come from after the win?
I think it really came from some of the frustrations throughout the game, and some of the things that we had ready to go and, like, called, we just didn't protect it. So there was, some issues like of, oh man, we've got it, it's wide open, sack. So, like, the levels of emotion that can, obviously go throughout a football game, and some of the frustrations of personnel that we had then we weren't able to play with, and some things that, because that if we had maybe a few of those pieces, and maybe some things play out differently in that football game. But also really the end of the game, because of how we finished. I didn't care. I really did not care, and have not cared since, about the stats of that game, except for the fact that we scored in a 2-minute drive to put us in a position to win the game. It was a little bit different because we had a little bit more time than a true 2-minute drill, which was nice. It wasn't as crazy. It wasn't as crazy, but it was the fact that we executed in that situation where we had not done a great job of executing in those situations throughout the season. But really just for Wandell, I knew he was gone, but I was so happy for him and for the guys. I mean, we had some players playing in that game at receiver that hadn't played a ton of snaps throughout the season. And Rasan Lewis to make that block, just little things like that just kind of, it's like, oh my goodness, this it was the best way to win a game, in my opinion. I would have rather that over 50 points, to be honest.
Yeah, it was it was kind of just, y'all just gutted it out.
Yeah.
Under Stoops, even before you've been here, they find ways to win games like that.
Yeah.
They don't win them all, but there's one or two a year where you're just like, man, like 2018 Missouri, Nick, they don't do anything on offense all day. They get a punt return touchdown. Defense gets 9 3-and-outs in a row, and they go and score on an untimed down at the end. They hadn't passed it all day. They go past it 70 yards. It's just like, like, what is this sport sometimes? Like, this is freaking nuts. But I think that's just kind of I don't know. It's a team building kind of culture kind of program. This is a standard. This is, the game's not over. We fight to the end. And then if you keep playing every play, eventually something good will happen. And it kind of felt like that was for y'all. Not much was going for y'all that game. You mentioned protection issues. Defense didn't have hardly any bodies, and found a way in the end.
That is 100% that's a great way of putting it, because it was so just hard. It was a hard win because of a lot of reasons, and you get so I got wrapped up in the whole. There was, after the Florida game, I wasn't the happiest human being in the world. And it's really difficult to live your life as a coach that way. And, a lot of guys that I talked to throughout the season it's like, man, you can't, you have to enjoy wins no matter what. And it's hard when you feel like your side or who you're responsible for did not maybe do their job and do our job as an offense. But it was gratifying in that way that we were the ones that, on offense, we went down the field and scored. And the defense, then we played, complementary football, which when we play complementary football, we're pretty good.
You mentioned too talking about the kind of culture of the team. I think that's a concept that gets kind of coachy, but it's hard to describe. What's it like looking at this team on paper when you're trying to get the job, you're trying to convince Coach Stoops that you're the right fit? What's the difference between looking from afar and then you show up in the spring and these are the guys that you're going to be working with, for the foreseeable future?
Yeah, it was obviously, your eyes have to adjust, your eyes have to adjust when you come from the NFL to college. And then same thing with high school recruiting, your eyes have to then adjust again to, when I first got here, I was saying no to everybody.
Mm-hmm.
I watched, I was like, no, specifically the quarterbacks.
Mm-hmm.
But your eyes have to adjust, and you have to start to realize that these guys aren't in the NFL right now, but they could be at some point, and it's on us to develop them. They're not going to be ready-made. And that's something that I've taken some time to get used to, but also, as you mentioned, the fiber of the team, we don't crush these kids in the off season. We do not grind them. We work them. Don't get me wrong. They work, but it's not, mat drills all winter, getting them up at 6 a.m., working them, they're puking, and they work hard, but they work smart. And our kids play their tails off. And I've been in programs and organizations where you just absolutely grind them and they don't want to play hard for you. And they don't want to play all the time. But when our kids, when we blow the whistle for either practice or a game, our kids go hard. They go really hard. And that's something I couldn't tell from afar until I got here.
Mm-hmm.
Saw them play hard on film, but you're not around it every day. So the culture of the whole organization and of the team is something that I think is like you mentioned, it's not just coach talk, because you see it when you turn the film on, our kids play their tails off, and you can't say that about every team.
You mentioned something. I'm going to pass the baton a little bit off the lucky after this one, but you mentioned something about, how your eyes have to adjust. What did your eyes see in Will Levis that you really liked, and what about him really grew throughout the season that really developed it? I don't know, maybe you didn't expect right off the bat.
Yeah, I think I remembered him from high school, and I remembered what he looked like, stature wise, size, and then really, like, when that video came out of him throwing the football, like in that indoor facility in Massachusetts, that I know where that is. I'm like, there's not a lot of guys that throw the football like this in the country. Like, there's just not. And, I'm like, and then I watched the Nebraska game a lot. Like, I didn't care to watch many of the other ones because they didn't have a chance. And when you don't have a chance, like, I mean, you're going to make a mistake, you can get pulled. Like, I'm not watching that crap. Like, it's not the way I coach and not what I believe in. So I'm not going to watch that. And I watched the game that he actually had a chance to be the guy and stick with it. And that was Nebraska, and led them back. They just didn't finish at the end. And he makes a couple unbelievable throws in that game to put them in a position to win. And so I really just based off, all that, and the fact that a kid was graduating from Penn State in 3 years, I know he's smart. So those are really the factors that went into it. And, then you get around him and you get him in the building. And, I mean, really, we put him with the threes for like the first 6 days of training camp or whatever it was. And to be honest with you, it wasn't even close after a day. It wasn't even close.
Yeah.
But
me and Nick were out there, and I think I turned to him. I said, it's just, the ball's just different coming out of his hand. It's not even, it just sounds different, looks different. And then he just had, I don't know, just an aura about him, like not a cockiness, just he looked like a starting quarterback, I guess is the best way to put it. I don't really know what else to say.
Yeah, he carries himself the right way. I mean, I knew though. I mean, it's tough to say, I guess, but I knew it was going to play out this way the whole time. It was just we wanted it the right way, and have the players be the ones that were like, "Coach, like, let's go. Like, when are we going to stop playing games? Like, get them up here. Like, get them with the ones." I mean, he wasn't even taking reps with the twos, I mean, he was with the threes on the other field with true freshmen running 7-on-7. So nobody could say, well, he was handpicked by Coen and they just started him right away. Nah, dude, like that kid took the whole job and dominated it. And it wasn't even close. So, I think that was what helped the process, that it wasn't close, and that he truly just played at a completely different level than everybody else. And that somewhat, in a lot of ways, carried over into some games. And as the season got going, he got better and better. And there was a couple hiccups throughout the way, but I think that there's a lot of things to work off of this season, specifically us ending the year that way on offense. I feel like just gives us some momentum, specifically at the quarterback position moving forward.
Did you know you were getting a kamikaze runner from that quarterback position? I mean, I think that was probably, you hear you want to run Wildcat, and you hear a running quarterback in high school, but you see that in college and it doesn't really play out like that. They're not running behind their pads. They're not running through people. I mean, then it was like Kentucky had a tight end playing quarterback sometimes running the football.
Right.
And he's just putting his body on the line. I mean,
the Missouri
I know that had
game
to make you cringe over there on the sideline.
Yeah, when he lowered his shoulder against with Barton.
I mean, even against Georgia, he was down there sticking his nose in there, and I was like, "Ugh, be careful there."
Yeah, I mean, when he trucks the linebacker in Missouri, I mean, it's like, then the LSU run where he's carrying the guy on his back for like 12 yards. I mean, it's just I knew that's what he was at times comfortable doing, but I was a little bit concerned about, okay, you did it in the Big Ten. He would get those hard yards at Penn State, but he also, a little bit different dudes now in the SEC. Mm-hmm. And so he did it every week against the SEC. And there was games that we didn't make running the quarterback as much of a priority, just based on more so scheme and also to keep him healthy in some ways. But when we did cut him loose, it was like, it's a big part of the game in college that I was, not in the National Football League. And it's a huge aspect of why we were successful on third down this year, was his ability to move the chains. And that's a huge, huge thing, I think, moving forward, specifically in recruiting this position. Can the kid extend plays? That's all. You don't need to be a true dual threat, but can he extend plays and do things outside of the scheme sometimes? Like that's important. And I trust, like, every time we call 3rd and 4 to 6, that he's going to make either the right decision with the ball or he's going to go get a first down.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned third down, red zone, opening games. Mm-hmm. Scored a touchdown in your first 2 possessions on everybody except Mississippi State and Georgia.
Right.
A lot of games started with an opening drive touchdown. Was that something you told Mark in the job interview you were going to do, or was that just how? I mean, I guess what led to that success, and then how? I know that's your goal every game. Or we get the ball, we're going to go score. But how sustainable is that game by game, or was it just y'all just getting in a good rhythm to start games?
Yeah, there's times that I scripted the top plays, but you don't stay on that script the whole time. It's the top opening script is more so, in my opinion, what I've done throughout the season. What we did as a staff was basically pick our top, what we thought is our top 10 to 12 plays in the game plan, and try to script it. Okay, if I'm going to open up with a run to Chris, then when I'm throwing it, it's going to Wandell. Then I'm going to get Josh a touch. Then I want to get Rig a touch. Then I want to get, Smoke a touch. Try to mix up the touches throughout the drives a little bit. So there was games that I had a script of 10 to 12 plays that I stayed on unless we got the third down. But Iowa, I didn't come up with that script or top plays until the morning of the game, and then just kind of put them on my call sheet, and then just called it, I used it as a reference, if you will. Okay. So, it's just, I think it's a little bit, I think we do a nice job as a staff of giving people early in the game, maybe some different things, maybe a few different looks, formations, motions, shifts, to come out, so that we're not just lining up in our first drive of the game and essentially running plays that you've seen on film the last 4 weeks. You might see that play, but it's going to be out of a different formation, personnel grouping, motion, or shift. And I think that kind of speaks to some of the creativity on staff that we have, and some of the guys that have come up with help come up with the game plan, and the guys executing it at a high level. But yeah, I was 8 of 13. We did scored on the first drive.
Yeah, that sounds right.
And then and Mississippi State and Georgia were the only 2 who didn't score on the first 2 possessions. So, and I think our kids played with confidence this year. I mean, whenever we struggled, it was, I kind of put it on me, and, a few things against Georgia, we just didn't throw and catch in a couple instances, but I think it's sustainable. I hope it's sustainable.
And it helps when you've got Will coming back. You've got Chris Rodriguez coming back. And I think that might be another player too, that you don't truly realize his skill until you see him going through piles. How can he develop? What are the boxes he needs to check as a senior in 2022?
I mean, if he plays the way he played the last 4 weeks of the season, then I think he's on the right track. I mean, if you really go back and look at, I mean, his last fumble was New Mexico State, right? So he fumbled against New Mexico State on the 3. Mm-hmm. He played fair. I think he had over 100, but we were kind of throwing the ball that game. It wasn't really a run the ball type game.
Right.
And then you just look at the way he kind of dominated the Louisville game, and the Tennessee game, he played his tail off. I mean, the last 4 to 5 weeks of the season, his preparation, the way he practiced, the way he approached everything, was the mindset that Chris Rodriguez needs to have every single week. And if he does that and he plays and runs as hard as he ran, at times this season, that the sky's the limit for the kid. And as you mentioned, it is difficult to gauge him unless you see him live. Because like in practice, you're just like, he's getting tagged off. And he's not the type of guy that's really going to make you miss. Mm-hmm. So in practice, you're like, man, that was a gash. How are we only getting 4-6 yards out of that run? Like that should go for 40. And you don't see it because, I mean, this kid never gets tackled behind a line of scrimmage. So the success on third down that we had is directly equated to him and running the football successfully on first and second down, because we're in so many more manageable third downs. I mean, when you're in 2nd and 6, 2nd and 5, 2nd and 4, it's so much easier to call plays, right? And he just does such a good job of keeping us ahead of the chains and ahead, and just in good position to call plays. So he's sneaky that way. He's sneaky that way in terms of the way he runs the football. And I mean, there was times the Iowa game, I'm looking at him like, I should just hand the ball off to this kid like 20 more times, just stupid the way he was running and the way he was playing. And we weren't really blocking too many people either.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Chris is back. Will's back. Wandell, as you mentioned, he's not back. And I feel like we do this offseason talk every single year. What's Kentucky going to do at receiver? And some of it is a little bit of just being snake bit. But you guys have recruited your tails off at that position. We haven't seen a lot of them. I really wanted Chauncey to be able to hold on to that last pass and that one drive, because that's a good momentum builder. But what do you like about some of those guys that were threes running with Will at the start of the season and kind of started showing their faces a little bit more down the stretch?
A few of those, like as you mentioned, Chauncey, I would have loved to see him make that play more for him, not for really for us, like for him and for his confidence and stuff moving forward, for Will to have confidence in him. I think that those guys, they need this spring is going to be huge. This winter and spring is big for them to step up because, they've now been in the system for a spring, specifically like Chauncey and those guys that have been here. Like you speak to young guys, Tay, DeMarcus Harris, Cleveland Thomas coming back, Rasan Lewis, Christian Lewis, a little bit different because he's a true, more of a true freshman. But those guys need to prove it this spring. Like they need to prove that they can make plays and that they can get trusted to make plays from Will. That's to me has got to be the vote of confidence needs to come from him. And I believe though that those guys will make some plays this spring. And I think because also I think at times that, Wandell's success might have, not hindered some of their development, but we're throwing the ball to Wandell and Josh. And that wasn't really a secret. And it wasn't a secret in the building either. And the kids still worked. They still worked, and they weren't getting a lot of targets and production. But I do believe that these guys will take this spring. You can already tell that their mindset, as much as they loved Wandell and Josh, and they learned a lot from those guys, I think that they're ready to show what they can do and get some of that chemistry. And if at the end of spring, somebody hasn't emerged, then we have to look elsewhere at that time. But I'm excited to see them hopefully make some plays this spring and show what they can do.
I think
and what can a guy
go ahead.
I was just going to say a guy that we've talked about a lot, Luckett, that's coming back.
You're asking my question. You read my mind. This is what co-hosts do on podcasts. Keaton Upshaw.
Okay.
That was obviously a big talking point for us. People have seen him, kind of seen his skill set, got a lot of people excited. Didn't have him last year. How big of an addition will that be? Now you kind of look, and that tight end room is, you got a lot of guys that look like they could be players over there.
Yeah. I was excited about Keaton from the spring, in the spring when I was able to work, we were able to work together and before he got banged up. And what's sad, this past summer, I thought he was having one of the best summers out of anybody in the building. Now we couldn't watch him with a football, but in the weight room, when we would do some of our football, individuals without without a ball, and just seeing these guys move around and learning the system. I thought he was taking a big step before he got injured. So I was really bummed for Keaton that happened. But I was really pleased with Justin Rigg this year, and Bates, and obviously Cummings being somebody that I think is going to step up. And so I think, like you mentioned, the room is very strong. I mean, if you look at with Bates coming back, Keaton, Isaiah Cummings, and Dingle, I mean, I think Dingle's going to be a good player too. So I'm excited about seeing what Keaton can do. It's just he's a little bit behind from him, mentally right now, because he just, lost a lot of those reps. So this will be huge for him. This winter will be huge. This spring will be huge for his development. And I am excited about that room. It could be a really dynamic room.
Yeah, and to go back to the NFL talk, I feel like the for some reason fullbacks are now a new thing. Kyle and Juszczyk.
Nice.
Can you do? Is that kind of how you envision the tight end position being, this sort of hybrid fullback tight end that can do a little bit of everything?
You would love one. I mean, Kyle Juszczyk, I coached against in college. He was at Harvard. I was at Brown. I mean, Kyle Juszczyk was a wildcat quarterback. He would go out to slot. He would play running back. He'd play tight end. Like, he was a different athlete than anybody else on the field in the Ivy League. And he's a little bit different because he's not true tight end length, but has enough length to do some of those things when he does need to play, maybe like off the ball in that hip position. But when he is truly he can play everywhere. So yeah, I'd love, for that hybrid type tight end slot, it's what we kind of have seen, try to see from Isaiah Cummings, right? Like, motion him around, wrap him around on lead blocks, but it's not like ISO lead blocks. It's not as hard downhill, and then be able to split him out, maneuver him a little bit to try to get him some targets, which we, need. I mean, I'm really excited about Isaiah this spring, really moving forward. So yeah, I'd love to be able to get that position sort of tied in that way, but I don't really envision us ever truly lining up in the eye and running the ball like right down your throat. It's just not really in my philosophy, but I do, if you had somebody that could help you that way, I would love to use that position.
I know we don't get I backs, but we do get two backs. There was some split backs this year, and I know Jatan missed some time at the beginning of the year, so that kind of stunted his growth. But you went to him a lot towards the end of the year. How is he different than Chris, and what does he bring the offense?
Well, he brings somebody I know I can trust. I know I can trust Jatan. I know he's going to catch the football. I know he's going to run hard and be in the right spot and not make, not line up wrong or do the wrong thing. He's very detail oriented. Like, when he practices with a purpose and with an intent to get better every single rep. He was one of my favorites coming out of spring. I mean, in terms of just like really excited about what he could do for our offense. Then he got, hurt, tied up with that whole deal over there off campus. So, it was just a lot of time that he missed. So to get him back and to get some of the production that we did get out of him, that production honestly is very down from what I expected. But he also missed a lot of time, and it wasn't really his time. Smoke earned what he had. And so it was hard to get three backs involved, right? It's easy to kind of get two guys going, but to get three is difficult. And I'm excited about Jatan. This is a big off season for him. And, I think that he can really be dynamic for us in some different ways, especially if he kind of works on his speed and gets a little bit faster.
Now, last one, I think we'll get you out of here, Liam. Just having your QB1 set in stone. Mm-hmm. Winter workouts, spring workouts, summer throwing sessions in the fall camp. Just how big is that for you? I mean, this time last year, it was just, you were brand new. You all have kind of your foundation in place. You got your guy behind center. You got some parts you still need to figure out, but you got that guy. How important will that be for your all kind of development through the offseason and into the season?
It's like having one of your, it's like getting a big, recruit. It's like signing a big recruit. It's to get him back. and have him be back is huge. I mean, just really just our offense, like what was nice from me to see kind of towards like bowl prep going into it, things like that, was you finally saw like we were just calling plays, right? Like it wasn't scripted really. We were just calling plays a lot in bowl prep practices. And the kids just heard it, lined up, like no issues, executed some nuances of things. Like you could start to see the system get like, okay, it's starting to click for some guys, right? And to have him and the chemistry that he gives us and brings, and the leadership and the knowledge of the system, it's huge. It's huge, especially with the departure of Fortner and some of those guys up front. From a mental standpoint, Will's going to need to take the next step from a mental standpoint, but it's huge. I mean, it's really big just for the off-season workouts, for the guys that are going to set up the throwing sessions. Like these things last year, I had to say to Joey, Bo, like everybody in fairness, like, hey guys, you know, this is on you guys to handle. Like I can't be a part of it because I can't organize throwing sessions as a coach, but like we had to facilitate and like, hey guys, like this is how you lead essentially. Like this is how you guys need to essentially get guys to, you need to be the nucleus, right? You know, whether it's watching film, whether it's socially, whether it's football, whatever it is. Well, now the guy that everybody looks to is back. And to hold that all together is huge. And it's only going to help his growth and his maturation throughout this process to be more comfortable. You know, I mean, he should be calling this offense when it comes training camp time, like naturally, like very easy. He should be able to like call a 2-minute drill on his own. He should be able to call some plays and feel comfortable. Like that's what I'd ideally like to do is, you know, in practice in 2-minute drills, then, you know, in training camp or whatever, like third downs, like, dude, you call it, like call your favorite play, like see how it goes, you know, like see if you can dial something up, because the more he can understand the why and the ins and outs of the system, the better off we'll be.
Awesome. Well, Liam, we appreciate you hanging out with us. I know, even though it's the off season, there's never an off season.
No doubt. No doubt about that.
2024 quarterback called me at 10:30 last night, so it does not. No.
Oh man. Well, we'll let you get back to the recruiting trail, get back to your baby boy. I know it's there's a lot of, I mean, that you want to talk about a crazy year. You lived it, man. You lived it.
Insane, but it's been awesome. So really excited about it. So it's been good.
All right. Well, Liam, we appreciate it. And I guess we'll be seeing you just 6 weeks from spring practice or something. It'll be here before you know it.
Yeah, let's go. I appreciate you guys having me on. Seriously, it's been great.